This is a special presentation of the Ticats Audio Network. On April 14th, CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie granted an audience with 300 Ticats season ticket holders on the club level at Tim Hortons Field. Here's how it unfolded.
All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Can you hear me okay? Can we hear me okay back there? Welcome to Randy's Road Trip. Welcome to the fourth floor of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame level, or club level here at Tim Hortons Field. Thank you so much for joining us for Randy's Road Trip. All right. Our enthusiasm will get there. We're not in mid-season form, so that's okay. Training camp's still a month away, which is crazy. It's actually 1 month away tomorrow. Everybody will be returning for training camp, which is super exciting, and exactly 60 days until the Cats open their season in Saskatchewan against the Rough Riders. So lots to get into. Our friend Bralon Addison is here. He's going to be joining me in just a few moments, but we'll give you about a 2-minute warning to either grab a drink from the bar or grab some snacks and head to your seat, and we'll get this evening started. All right. How are we doing tonight? Let's try this again. How are we doing tonight? A little better, a little better. Had a little Oski wee wee. Maybe that'll get us going here. A little Oski wee wee. Holy Mackinac Tigers. All right. We're getting going a little bit. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Louie B. If you can't see me up at the front here, fortunately for you, I don't know, depending on how you want to look at it, I am available on all those screens as well. So if you can't see me or have a direct shot to me, my name is Louie B. I am the host of Ticats today on the Ticats Audio Network, in addition to hosting Tiger Cats pregame alongside Andy Fantus, Ticats at the half, and Ticats postgame as well. And we want to thank you guys so much for joining us here tonight as we welcome the 14th Commissioner, Randy Ambrosie, as part of his Hamilton stop on Randy's Road Trip. We're also broadcasting on the Ticats Audio Network now, so if you miss any portion of tonight, you'll be able to find it on the Ticats Audio Network, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. As mentioned, the Commissioner, Randy Ambrosie, will be joining us in just a few moments, but before we do that, I'm very pleased now to be joined by Ticats receiver, Mr. Bralon Addison. So please put your hands together. Bralon Addison joining me up here on the Ticats Audio Network desk. And Bralon, first thing we got to start to talk about, is that a new digit on your shirt there? Is that a new number that you'll be rocking in 2022?
I think so. I'm good. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, new number for me this year. Of course, I loved 86, but when I was in college, I had an injury. I wore number 11 in college, and after an injury, I switched to number 2. So I thought I'd just keep it going. I got injured last year and just, start over with a new number.
Obviously, last year was not the way you wanted the season to go. From the start of camp, you come back, you put up really an all-star performance in the game before you go down. How do you bounce back from a season where things don't go your way? You watch your team succeed on the field. You see them get to the Grey Cup. How do you kind of put that on the back burner, but also use as motivation heading into the new season?
I think it's like you said, it's a kind of double-edged sword. As far as personally, not being able to compete all year, definitely was a tough challenge. Coming off the year I had in 2019, individually and as a team, the collective success we had, and not being able to win the Grey Cup. Just coming into last year, I had all these plans as far as individual goals and team goals, and like I said, individually, I didn't get to accomplish those goals, but at the end of the day, I'm a team guy, and, watching the team compete all year and get better each week, and, from the early weeks in the season to people counting us out and, just writing us off to being basically one play away from being Grey Cup champions at home. I couldn't be more proud as a teammate, but like you said, it's just kind of that motivational thing as far as me wanting to come back and help the team compete, and also as a team want to collectively get the job done.
Now, when you look around the receiver room, you are the veteran in the room. You look around and you got Tim White and Pappy White, and there's a lot of talent, but there's not a whole lot of CFL experience. Look, guys got big experience last year, but as kind of the veteran in the room, are you prepared? Have you already kind of taken on a leadership role in the receiver room because of your experience and because of the relative inexperience of the guys who are in there now?
I think, when it comes to leadership, as far as for myself goes, I've always been the kind of guy that likes to lead by example. Obviously, I know this year with me, as far as being on this team, being one of the guys that has the most experience with this team wearing this jersey, the team is going to look for me to have more vocal leadership presences. And I think the guys that we have in the locker room are good guys that, everybody understands the common goal, the collective goal that we're trying to accomplish. And adding some guys in the locker room as far as offensive lineman goes and running backs goes, and then adding a guy in the receiver room like Lamar Durant, who is a CFL veteran. I think the job will be pretty easy. Even the young guys we had last year, I think they were all guys that came in, won the same things. Like I said, everybody wants to succeed individually, but everybody wants to win a championship. So I think for a guy like myself to be surrounded by guys that want to win a championship, it makes it easy.
And talking about leadership, Dane Evans will be the starting quarterback. There's no question. There's no competition. Dane Evans will be the starting quarterback week 1 for this Ticats team. Mm-hmm. You and him had a lot of success in 2019. How do you pick up on it? How do you get back to where you guys were in 2019 with more experience, with him having more experience, you having more reps? What are you expecting to see from you and him in 2022?
As far as Dane goes, just him personally, I'm excited for Dane. I talk to him all the time, and Jeremiah being one of my great friends and Dane being one of my great friends. It was kind of tough last year to watch from the outside looking in of those guys basically having to compete all year against each other, and not necessarily saying I wanted this guy to be the starter or that guy to be the starter, but when you have two great friends that at the end of the day everybody wants to play, everybody wants to be the guy. And to see them, work through it so well, and now Jeremiah has gone on to, be the man in Ottawa, and now Dane gets his turn. I'm super excited for Dane. I have the utmost confidence in him, which is why I kind of came back early this year before camp to kind of start getting that chemistry going again and being healthy and just, start watching film with him and I'm super excited, man. I don't really have the words for it right now because, like I said, when I first burst on the scene in 2018, Dane was the guy throwing to me, so. I couldn't be more excited off of 2018, 2019, and now being able to build a full year of it in 2022.
Should be a lot of fun to watch. And before we let you go, we are 1 month away from training camp, so let's fast forward 30 days from now. You'll be checking into your room at McMaster for a few weeks for training camp. You've done it a couple of times, but what are you feeling? How are you feeling? And 30 days out from training camp, what would you say your general sense is on how you feel?
I feel great, man. Like I said, that's why I came back early. I couldn't wait. Like I said, it was tough to sit and watch all last year and have to just watch from the sidelines. But like I said, I was excited to see what the team did. But like I said, everybody wants to be a part. So I came back early so I could start throwing with Dane, start watching film. I'm ready for training camp. I'm 100% healthy. I'm ready to go.
All right, well, fans are definitely excited to hear that, aren't we? All right, one more time for Bralon Addison, everybody. Thank you. All right, as we roll along here, thanks again for joining us. We're very pleased now to welcome the 14th commissioner of the Canadian Football League, Mr. Randy Ambrosie, to the stage. Randy. Now, Randy, we're very excited to be back here at Tim Hortons Field, and I want to say, you are back here for the first time in your official capacity as commissioner of the CFL since the 2021 Grey Cup a few months ago.
Yeah, that's right. Well, first of all, it's great to be here. Nice to see all of your smiling faces. And I haven't noticed, but I don't think anyone is behind a mask tonight, which all on its own is very encouraging. But I'm gonna start just to say, just play a show of hands. How many of you were here at Grey Cup? Was there any? Maybe it'd be easier the other way. Which of you weren't at the Grey Cup? Okay, so basically, there's this poor guy. What happened? You took the, okay, so listen, we'll talk later. I know the number of a good therapist. Yeah, but, one of the things that I think we can safely say is that was a remarkable day for the Canadian Football League. It really was. And pardon? It had been a long time since it's going to, but you know what? To make up for it, we're going to come back. And so, listen, right? If you can't fix it, just say you're sorry and move on is how I figure. You got to think about it. But, in all seriousness, I think all of you in this city, in this community, have a lot to be proud of. After what was 2 pretty hard years that we faced together, and with so many families dealt with some of these serious challenges during that time. But that Grey Cup week, and that ended on that day that way in this stadium, this stadium, as great as it has been, and I know all of you have been here so many times, but there can be nothing that compared to that day and the way all of you, the way the energy and the passion and the joy and the happiness that were part of that Grey Cup day, the day I'll never forget it in my lifetime. And I wanted to start by saying thank you to each one of you for making it a truly special Grey Cup. So what's your plan, big fella?
Well, we lots to get into, and let's start with the Grey Cup because there was, one of the legacy projects of the Grey Cup is the 50-50, and here in Hamilton, more than $200,000 was raised back right into the community. Bernie Custis getting a chunk, the Hamilton Bulldogs Foundation, and going back to Hamilton minor football. Just talk about what it means to not only get to put on an event like that, but get to have that legacy of that money raised and the 50-50 that will, affect not just the people who are here, not just the person who took home the big grand prize, but the legacy that will leave for the community down the road.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is the right word. And in fact, if you were to say there is one single word that describes our league better than any other sports league in the world, and I think it's the word community. And in fact, it's probably the thing I am most proud of. When I think about the history of the CFL and I think about the players that have come here and played and gone into the community. To just this morning, we were having breakfast, and somebody was talking about Dane Evans. I don't know, is Dane in the room tonight? Is Dane here? I understood that he might be dropping by, but I understood that Dane had recently been out to take part in a flag football event that was going on, and he just showed up. And he just showed up and threw the ball for the kids. And that's the CFL. First of all, what a credit to this community, to this football franchise, to have somebody of Dane's caliber, not just as an athlete, because he's a world-class quarterback, but what a quality human being. But the idea and the fundamental foundation of building on communities. And it's one of the things that you may not see and fully appreciate, just how much this football team and the way you all lean in to support the football club, and how the football club pays it forward in return by giving so much to the community and giving so much to these kids, and then resulting in, the legacy that is that 50-50. But all of these things contribute to making Hamilton better and stronger. And it's the perfect virtuous circle where, somebody gives and somebody gives in return, and then that circle it's like a flywheel, and it keeps turning and turning. And again, it's a real credit to what Bob Young has built here with the Ticats, to Bob's team, to Scott Mitchell and Matt and the rest of the organization, who are world-class people. And now, of course, Stelco joins the family, and now rounds out the ownership group, which is really exciting. So now you've got Bob Young, your caretaker, joined by Jim Lawson and Scott Mitchell, and then Stelco. Like, really, you couldn't ask for a better group of owners, and I think it does speak to the long-term opportunity for the Hamilton Tiger Cat football team, and the future for football here in Hamilton.
Well said, Commissioner. And really exciting thing kicked off this week with the Diversity in Football program. And I bring it up because here in Hamilton, we have in Orlando Steinauer, one of the most well-respected football minds in this country, and he has been promoted to president of football operations. He's the first black head coach of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. What does it mean to have a man like Orlando Steinauer be the face of what's happening on the field, off the field with this organization?
Well, first of all, you just can't speak to the amazing quality of your head coach and your president of football operations. I had a chance to have lunch with Coach Steinauer today and a number of members of his staff, and what a joy that was. And we just had a chance to talk football. And for me, it's a thrill. I mean, it feels like a lifetime ago that I played, but I can just sit, and the ability to sit and the opportunity to sit and just talk football. And just to share ideas. And we talked about everything. We talked about some of the rule changes that are now that are being considered. And I asked the coaches, defensive coordinator, what he thought, and offensive coordinator. And it was great to watch the two of them have this conversation with each other about something like the hash marks and how that would affect the game, and what each of them thought. And then Coach Steinauer would weigh in, kind of the referee in between the two of them. It was so much fun. But, again, they're such good people. They're so passionate about the league. They're so passionate about Hamilton and the Ticat football organization. And just to be around them makes you a better person. And to have the coach and his commitment to being here and to growing and building this football program, I think is really special. And then, frankly, I think the future's bright here. When you've got such an accomplished coaching staff and great player personnel, talent. And, I think candidly for the success this football team has enjoyed over the past few years, actually I think as good as that history has been, I think the future's even brighter because you've got such a great group of people.
Yeah, and it was great to see Tommy Condell and Mark Washington promoted in keeping with their offensive and defensive coordinator positions. This week it was announced they were promoted to assistant head coach. So great people being developed within the system, and it's great to see them have success. Let's stick with Coach O because we mentioned it's 60 days until the Ticats return to the field. It's a little bit longer than that until they're back here at Tim Hortons Field. And June 18th, our home opener, we're going to kick it off in style as we will celebrate the 2020 and 2021 Canadian Football Hall of Fame class, Orlando Steinauer among them. But what does it mean to get to welcome fans back in normal times, let's say, with such a big game and with such a ceremony that will be the first time we'll get to celebrate these Hall of Famers?
Yeah, it's, again, it's almost serendipity, right? You think about just being with all of you tonight, just being in the room and walking into the room and thinking about the fact that after this long stretch, we're kind of back. You're having a snack, you're having a beer. I'm not having a snack or a beer, so I'm a little sadder than you are, to be honest with you. But the fact that we're all together like this, and you start to now allow yourself and you indulge in the idea that we're going to, yeah, that's right, yeah, don't get me started. It could get really interesting if we get started. But you just start allowing yourself you indulge yourself in the idea that it's getting better now, that we're at the beginning of a new beginning, and then you think about what that's going to mean when we get the crowd into this stadium. And then, the Hall of Fame to bring those two classes together. And, there's nothing like being with those Hall of Famers, to think that for them and their families, that's the moment where all of their accomplishments are permanently enshrined. And the joy, and every time I'm part of one of those ceremonies and I look into the eyes of those players and former coaches and athletes and administrators who get and are fortunate enough to be selected into the hall, and you see the joy, it's almost impossible to describe the way they look in that moment when they're about to go into the Hall of Fame. And that almost seems perfect. So all of that coming together, we'll all be back together here in this beautiful stadium, and then you have the Hall of Fame on top of it. I think it's absolutely a perfect way to kick off home season for the Ticats in 2022.
And if you haven't already, I would recommend go check out the bus and to get to be able to do this here at the Canadian Football Hall of Fame level at Tim Hortons Field. Very exciting. Of course, it's Clyde Brock, Henry Burris, Freddie Childress, John Huffnagel, Larry Utek, and Greg Vavra, who are going in 2020 as 2020. And then 2021, how about this one? Will Johnson, Marv Levy, Nick Lewis, Doug Mitchell, someone we know well here, Orlando Steinauer, someone we know well, Mike Walker, and Don Wilson, and that'll happen June 17th, and then the game June 18th.
Hey, so can I just, if I may, just on some of those names, I had the privilege to play in this league when Mike Walker was playing here for the Ticats, and I don't know if you remember Mike as a player. I remember it really well because he pounded the living tar out of me a lot. He was a rare and special talent, and when you think about that group, and it was Grover Covington and Mike, and then David Sauvé was another member of that group. They were special, and I was playing for the Argos at the time, and I know, sorry, I know. Oh my gosh! And I wore my blue shoes tonight. But I remember coming in here, and when you had to play a game against Mike Walker, you had to double and triple prepare because he was a handful, and on top of it, he was such a nice guy. He was impossible. Like he'd pound you into the ground like you were a nail. But he always had that smile on his face, and it just made you mad because, oh my gosh, how can somebody be having that much fun kicking my butt? But, every one of those names, Greg Vavra was a teammate of mine in 1985 in Calgary, and he's a remarkable guy. Of course, I know John Huffnagel really well, but each one of those names means something to all of us. And again, just a thrill to think about all of them having their day, and their families will be with them, and a chance to see them being inducted into the Hall. It's pretty special.
Randy, what gives you optimism, not just for the upcoming season, but what gives you optimism about this league long term as we stand right now? What are you excited about as commissioner of the Canadian Football League?
Well, I have to say I've given that question a lot of thought, and it's come at me in a lot of different ways over the past many months. And if you'll indulge me, I'll take you through a bit of a journey in explaining and giving you a response to your otherwise simple question. When I think about the last 2 years, as hard as they've been, I'm immediately drawn to the fact that this group of governors, this group of presidents, could have very easily spent all of their time, feeling sorry for themselves and mad and frustrated and disappointment that we had been pitched a curveball. But instead, what this group decided to do was really roll up their sleeves and use that time to make necessary and important changes to the league. And Winston Churchill famously said, "Never waste a crisis." And I think we were going to be able to look back at these past 2 years, and in fact, I'm going to argue that these 2 years went through the lens of time. These last 2 years will be remembered as perhaps two of the most important years in CFL history, and I'll explain. The CFL has long desired to have a revenue sharing strategy, and it has always eluded us for many, many reasons. The idea of a revenue sharing strategy has eluded us, and I think everyone knew that the idea of supporting your partners who were struggling was a good idea, but we could never seem to come together on how to do that. And we were able to, during that crisis, come up with a revenue sharing strategy that's going to serve this league incredibly well into the future. And that is when you've been without something for 4 or more decades, and then you're able to get that done, and you put in place a really solid revenue sharing strategy. I think that's a major accomplishment. So you'd say that's one reason why I'm very excited about the future. Another is just the fundamental way the governors approach the opportunity to partner with Genius Sports. So if you will, it's a question I get asked all the time. Why are what is Genius Sports, and why is it an exciting opportunity for the CFL? And I can tell you that we've gotten to know the guys and the people at Genius really well over the past many months. Genius has really three businesses that are fundamental to our future. So one of those businesses is a sports marketing business. And they have built strategies that they have used successfully all over the world, and they can just put you in front of a whole long laundry list of things that they have helped other pro sports teams and other pro sports leagues do in the realm of sports marketing. It's sophisticated, high-tech, very modern marketing strategies, highly customizable marketing strategies, the ability to reach potential fans and customize marketing messages to those fans so they can identify a fan who is a football fan but maybe not a CFL fan. They can identify that football fan's interest in say a particular athlete or a team. They can deliver content directly to that fan. They can remind them when the games are being played. I mean, there's just a whole host of highly technical, amazing sports marketing technologies that they have at their disposal. Another thing in that same business is something called Second Spectrum, and it's a technology business, and they're going to be installing cameras in all of our CFL stadiums. Now, these aren't regular cameras. They're not like the ones we have on our phones. These cameras capture, I believe it's something around 10 to 12 frames per second. This is the technology that's going to allow us to look at things like the NFL's Nickelodeon program, where you could potentially do slime trails for kids. So you could end up broadcasting a game where you could have a second channel or a third channel that is dedicated to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And all of it will be, I used to think, gosh, when I was a kid, it was Batman and all this stuff, the boom and the bam and the pow, and they can do all of that technology because of these cameras and the technology that those cameras create. It's also technology that's going to allow us to use during the broadcast to be able to show our fans how many miles per hour or kilometers per hour a player is running at. And all of that super high-tech technology, which may not be appealing to all of us in the room, but it is, we know, incredibly valuable to attracting a new generation of fans because they like that kind of detailed information. So that's another part of the Genius suite of businesses. Then in the gambling business, which they are one of the world's leading experts in, I want to start by saying I pray we'll never see CFL fans betting their mortgage money or their grocery money on a CFL game. But boy, would I love to see tens of thousands of fans putting a $5 bet, betting perhaps on the Ticats to beat those rascals from down the road. Because we know through all the research that's been done, that creates a huge fan engagement opportunity because people are just more drawn to the game. And again, I'm looking out at all of you, and I don't think you need a lot more encouragement to be engaged. So perhaps you might not do it, but there's a huge potential audience of fans in Canada that are gamblers, and gamblers not in any negative way, but they like to bet on games. Football is the single most wagered sport in the world, and now we can use the Genius technologies and capabilities to help us reach into those fans and have them become fans of the CFL. And look, if we have to use gambling to get them to realize how amazing our game is, then let's do it, because we can get an entire generation of new fans that'll come and watch our game and be incredibly impressed by the quality of athletes that play here in the Canadian Football League. So that's another opportunity. And then the third is what Genius does in their broadcast technologies business. So their board chair is the former head of a U.S. sports network. The president of Genius USA is the former CEO of ESPN. And they have made it clear and committed to us that they are going to help us build a long-term digital broadcast strategy. Our ESPN rights are up at the end of this season. We're going to look for ways that we can, think about a new and innovative strategy to bring our game to the world. The U.S. football market is the single biggest football market in the world. How do we get more Americans to be interested? And they basically have made it clear to TSN that anything that they can do to help and support the TSN relationship with the CFL, they're going to be willing to do. So it is just a home run on so many fronts. So you take the revenue sharing plan, and then you add the Genius Sports partnership to it. Those are just two reasons why I think there's good fundamental reason tonight to say that I think the future's never been brighter. I think we're going to have to work hard. This is not we're just, tomorrow everything is going to be peachy. But I think if we work hard and stick to the knitting, I think the future's never been brighter.
Well said. And a lot, when you talk about the future, some people sometimes get scared by the word future or change or rule changes, and that will kind of lead me. You've made it clear. Should I even ask the question, Commissioner? Do you know what's coming?
Well, can I interrupt? Can I just say? I want to just say. I want to. Oh my gosh. Okay.
If you want to take it, that way I don't have to ask
It's been a cause for some worry, and if I can, would you mind if I shared my worry, my concern with all of you? Like, we're friends, right? So we can share that. I've been incredibly worried about the education system in parts of Canada over the past many weeks. Terribly worried. And I am now convinced that we need to go back and teach anatomy. Because I have had fans send me messages that have suggested I do certain things that are just frankly not possible, okay? and I think we've got to go back to the basics, okay? Where were we? Oh, yeah.
I don't know where we were going.
Yeah, you know what? Look, I can tell you that I've done a lot of reading. I've been asked to run businesses that needed change, and I can tell you the way, for the most part, the way we all think about change, we want everything to be different as long as it doesn't affect us, right? I mean, and that's the classic conundrum. But I have been remarkably inspired by the way our presidents, our general managers, and our head coaches came together to really take a hard look at things that we might do to improve this already great game of ours. And that exercise, which one of the ideas that I'll talk a little bit about tonight, which I think is quite exciting, it's not yet been approved, it has to go through the process, came out of this product review. And it's the idea of moving our hash marks. And if you'll just give me a couple minutes, I'll explain why I think this is so exciting. In fact, Coach Steinauer and his staff and I talked a lot about this today. So the way they describe the benefits. So if you're where the hash marks on our field currently sit, if you're on the left hash, the short side of the field is actually got very little room. So your defense doesn't really have to focus on your left, so which would then be the defense's right, because there's not a lot of room to maneuver over there. So you don't have to necessarily play, kind of an honest defense on the short side of the field because it's limited, there's limited potential. The right side of the field, that's from the left hash to the right sideline, is so big that in fact your wideout receiver that's flanked out to the right side of the field on the right sideline is actually mostly a decoy. And they had taken us through an exercise to watch game film, and you'll see that for the most part, don't misinterpret what I'm about to say, but for the most part, we've actually been playing 11-man football. Because when that wide receiver is flanked out all the way to the right, there's no coach in the CFL wants their quarterback to throw from the left hash to the right sideline. Why? Because that ball is in the air for about an hour and a half. And if ball that's in the air that long, the chances of it being picked off are really great. So that player, that wide receiver flanked out to the right, is really only there as a decoy, and that defensive back, that corner, doesn't really have to play that receiver the way you would say normally expect the defensive back to play because that player is really mostly irrelevant to the play. So now you move the hash marks in. Now your left side of the field, when you're on the left hash, there's a lot of room there. So now the defense has to play that left side of the field. And now the right side of the field, from the left hash to the right sideline, that entire space is available to you. So what happens is now we actually have this field, which is 110 yards long and 65 wide, with big end zones. Now the entire field is available to our offenses, and the defenses have to cover that amazingly big piece of real estate. And we were just having fun over lunch, and I kept trying to press them. I was doing math because I'm a geek, and I was doing math on if you take the size of our end zones, add to it the size of the field, and then multiply that times 65, which is the width of our field, and then you divide that by 12, and then you take the size of the NFL field with its 10-yard end zones and 100-yard field times 53.5, and you divide that by 11. Our players will have to cover almost 33% more field per player than they would have to cover in the NFL. And our coaches unanimously believe this is an opportunity to really take advantage of this big piece of real estate we call the CFL field. And this is exciting because this is what comes out of good product discussion, where you just get in a room with super smart people that love our game, and to watch the wheels turning and how they were talking to each other about how do we take this game we all love and how do we make it even better was quite exciting. So that is just one of many ideas that have been discussed. So I think that the idea of a product review was the right thing to do. But I would say all the magic was watching these men talk to each other as colleagues and think about how do we take the great game. And again, the idea, just going back to hash marks for a moment, it's great to have a big field, but if you're not using it, it's not a tremendous advantage. But this change could potentially make our big field a very, very meaningful part of the future of the CFL. And again, I think it's just an example of why going through this process was really good for us.
And I'm looking over here at Bralon, who's nodding along. He likes the idea of the hash mark. So yeah. If it's receiver approved, I think we're on the right track. Especially
so, can I ask
Bralon, like Bralon?
Seriously, because you're like literally you're the expert in the room. Would you agree generally that wide receiver that's flanked out to the far right is playing more of a decoy role in the current way the offenses operate, just because of the length of that throw from left hash to right sideline?
Most definitely. When you were actually explaining it, I was sitting here and I was thinking to myself, he's totally right. If you watch I know, Finn. Can you hear me? Okay. So if you actually watch a lot of the games last year, like you said, that receiver to the field, a lot of teams wouldn't really cover him because they would take that chance and let's see if that quarterback can make that throw. Unfortunately, we had two guys last year that could make that throw, but a lot of teams didn't. So we think that, we've been talking about it ourselves, and we've been seeing people, float the idea around on Twitter and things. And I think a lot of the players, offensively at least, I know defensive players won't like it, but we think that would be a great change because it would make that player, that one strong player, that receiver to the field, would make him very useful.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, can I just say, Bralon, thank you, by the way. It's great to see you. And can I just say the phrase that we are now going to mint for the rest of the night, and it's the only phrase you're allowed to use, is that the commissioner's absolutely right. Okay? So, Bralon, literally, I'm voting. I've already voted you onto the All-Star team this year.
We haven't gotten to the Q&A portion of the night yet, Commissioner. Speaking of which, let's get to some questions. Some of the people here in attendance have asked some questions here for you. And we'll start with Mickey Mercanti, who was wondering how much interest there is from the Board of Governors to increase the number of import players there should be on each team. It appears to me that there's not as many Canadian players as there used to be available for the draft, and if we can interest more American collegiate players in coming up here, the better entertainment value that would be. So back to the question, the interest from the Board of Governors to increase the number of import players there should be on each team.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer the question a little bit differently, and I'll start by saying there is not a single CFL general manager, there's not a single CFL head coach, nor a single CFL coach that I've met and talked to that doesn't believe that Canadian players are a critical and fundamental part of the Canadian Football League. There's nobody, and anyone that would suggest that somehow there's an anti-Canadian sentiment is just wrong. They're just full out wrong. I think what we've had to acknowledge is that decline in participation rates in football in Canada, is having an effect on the size of the talent pool. We looked at some numbers, and we would say that basically, and I'll give you some examples. In hockey, there's almost 360,000 kids registered to play hockey in Canada, and there's roughly 990 jobs as players in the NHL. And then when you X out the number of those players who are Americans and they X out the number of those players who are international, if you keep all 1,000 jobs available to just the Canadians, it's 1 out of every 350 kids has an opportunity to play in the NHL. But of course, that when you add the American players and you add the international players, it's a lot smaller than that. So it's probably more like 1 out of every 7 or 800 jobs are available to Canadian kids, and yet we never hear anybody talking about the NHL disrespecting Canadians. People believe that the Canadian players are more than capable enough to compete for jobs in the NHL, and I believe that Canadian players are more than capable of competing for jobs in the CFL. How do I know that? I know that because now we have roughly 24 Canadian kids playing on NFL rosters, the most in football's history. Why? Because Canadian players are super talented. They are. There should be we actually need to get away from this feeling that somehow Canadian players are an inferior quality athlete. They aren't. But there is a challenge, and that challenge is we just don't have as many Canadian kids playing football as we used to have. Right now, roughly 1 out of every 20 U Sports players plays in the CFL. 1 out of every 20 U Sports player plays in the CFL. What do you think that number is of the number of 1 out of every what number of American kids play in the NFL? Just by a guess. Anyone? Did you say a couple hundred? It's actually 1 out of every 278. So 1 out of every 278 U.S. college players will play in the NFL. Ours is 1 out of every 20. I don't think I've read a Sports Illustrated article of late where people are criticizing the NFL for its lack of commitment to U.S. college athletes. The best athletes play. So, look, I think we feel like we've got a tremendous conversation going on with our partners, the players, on how to build the best and most competitive league in the world. The best place for that conversation to have around what the right strategy is to have that conversation happen with our players. And if I may, I'll just take a moment and just talk a little bit about this relationship with the players, which I would say, for those of you who aren't watching closely, I think it's gone through a marked improvement in these past 2 years. And I think there was a recognition on both sides, and I'd give full credit to the Player Association for coming to the same conclusion that we did, that our future is better together, that we have to treat each other as partners, not as adversaries. We have to think about how we can work together to grow the great game together and make sure that the players feel like they are a partner in our business. And the way we've behaved of late is quite differently. So I'll give you some examples. We did this national fan survey. We surveyed about 1,050 sports fans in Canada, and we asked questions about their perceptions of our game. And what came out of that fan research, fans wanted, they want more game flow. So I think one of the things we know we've got to figure out is we got to reduce the number of 2-and-outs. So the number of 2-and-outs in the CFL has been creeping up over the past 5 years. So we need to make sure that they're giving our offenses a chance, and that's why this idea with the hash marks is quite appealing. The fans told us they want great players. The fans told us they want more scoring. So we took all of it. What we did completely differently this time than any other time in our history is we took that research and we shared it with the players. Because we want the players to feel part of everything that we're thinking about, and we want the players to be partners with us in the future that we're going to create. We had Genius Sports meet with the players. Why? Because Genius is not just a partner of the league, but Genius is a partner for our players as well. And Genius was able to share some of the ideas on how some of the Genius technologies can help the players build their personal brands, which will help the players to be more successful, in their careers. We had, this coming Monday, we have TSN coming into our bargaining meeting, and TSN is going to speak to both the league and the players about their desire to be not just partners with the CFL, but to be partners with the CFL Players Association and our players as well. We're basically trying to reinvent the way we think about that relationship, and as I said, I would give full credit to the Players Association executive for really embracing the idea that we need to build this league together as friends and as partners, and I think we're on the right track. And all of these decisions around exactly what the right strategies are need to be done in collaboration with our players.
Let's get to another question. This one comes from Joe Marzilli. He said, I just recently read that expansion into Atlantic Canada is a certainty. Once a team in Atlantic Canada is financially viable, are there any preliminary plans to expand beyond that? If so, do you have a timeline in what part of Canada or maybe the U.S. with the league target? Let's start with the first part of that question in Atlantic Canada and other possible expansion areas.
Yeah, so we recently hired an investment bank that specializes in sports to help us address some of the critical issues facing our future strategies, and one of them was expansion. And they made the argument that if you look at the world of sports, expansion is a reasonable. In fact, it is in fact the necessary part of growing your league. And their point was you can't possibly get to 12 until you get to 10, so get to 10 first, right? So all of our time and energy and effort right now are going to be focused on how do we get that 10th team. The 10th team solves a lot of problems. That 10th team means you can run a balanced schedule. The 10th team means you can eliminate at least one, maybe two of your bye weeks. It means you can actually shorten your season without having to move your season up. There's lots of advantages to a 10th team for the Canadian Football League, and so what we've been working on with our investment banking partner is on a strategy. So we're taking any carpenters in the room, the carpenter's axiom, measure twice and cut once. But we know this. We know that expansion is a reasonable, rational, and in fact necessary part of our future. So now we have to work on a strategy to make sure that we achieve expansion as quickly as we can, but it's got to be the right kind of expansion. It's got to be a win for the team where we expand into, and it's got to be good for the rest of their partners.
Another question here. This one comes from Jason Hussey. He says, hi, Randy. What is in store for the future of the global CFL 2.0 vision? For example, could we see a starting spot or two reserved for globals on every team? And I will preface that by saying the Ticats have 5 global players who are expected to break through the team in camp. So where are we at in CFL 2.0?
Yeah, we had a really good conversation about this exact issue today with Coach O and his staff, and we were again, I'll try to come at this slightly differently. I know if we don't have any global strategy at all, then I can tell you exactly what the global opportunity is. It's like multiplying by 0. Every time you multiply by 0, you get the same answer. You get 0. I think what we feel, and it was great to have Scott participate in that conversation, I think what we feel we've done now is we've got a really good start on a strategy. We need to let this strategy go to work for us now. So the idea is not to expand our global concept, is to make this global concept really work. Scott was saying, and the coaches agreed, we're starting to see the quality of our global players coming into our training camps has been improved over the past 2 seasons. We're expecting to see it continue to improve. We expect to see those players making increasingly strong contributions to their rosters. So we need to make this strategy work before we consider doing anything differently. But I think we got the beginnings of a good foothold. Now we just have to make it work.
And we saw our first global all-star.
A global player is a non-North American, basically not an American, so what we would, again, back in the day where imports versus non-imports, Canadians versus Americans. So a global would be a player who would be neither an American nor a Canadian.
All right, we got a couple more questions here as we're running short on time. This one comes from Steve Bashik, who says, from Sticky Stala to Pinball Clemens, Speedy Banks to Swervin' Mervin, CFL players have had some of the most recognizable names in Canadian sport. Back at the turn of the century, Chris Rainey's older brother, Rod Smart, gave the upstart XFL lots of recognition and a shot in the arm by posting the moniker "He Hate Me" on the back of his jersey. Does the CFL have any plans to allow players to put their nicknames on the back of their jerseys?
Well, no, not really. I mean, quite honestly, I had a few names for the guys that I played against, and I didn't think that TSN or CBC at the time would have appreciated me putting those on the back of anybody's jersey. Look, it's kind of a fun question, but there are certain things that I would describe myself as being quite traditional, and I would think, that's the name, that's your family's name. I think we should have that on the back of your jersey, at least for now. And boy, when we get to that point where we decide to be super creative, maybe we'll entertain that.
All right. And one more here. This one's from Louise Allison. It says, with the state of the game in flux, when will the CFL make the statement that we are not making changes to our game that makes it distinctly Canadian?
Well, yeah, see, shame on all of you for clapping. Oh, sorry. Remember, I got emails from, I'm going to be checking your email addresses later. Look, I hope I've answered the question, at least in part, from my earlier comments. Look, I think what we saw from our coaches, GMs, and presidents was a conversation about how do we started with the idea of a simple goal. We want to have the funnest, fastest, most entertaining football product in the world. That's our goal. And when you start, and when you start there, and you just focus your mind on the funnest, fastest, most entertaining football product in the world, that was the entire conversation. And that's where all the energy was directed to, was how do we take this game and make it better, make it more fun, make it faster, improve the scoring. And it's the conversation we're having with the players right now about how just generally we improve the game for the future. So I think largely the question, frankly, is a lot of it was and I've gotten trouble for this, I suppose, at some level. I pointed to a tweet, or I guess a report by somebody that said that Genius Sports had said that Genius Sports was demanding a change to 4 downs. It just wasn't true. It wasn't true. It was never true. But in the world of social media, it became a story. And in the end, when the coaches, GMs, and presidents got together, they were focused on one thing: how do we take this game and make it great? How do we use this unbelievably? Do the math. Our size of our end zones, 110 yards times 65. How do you use all that real estate and make it hard for the defenses to defend all that territory? Because the field, as big a part of what makes our game great, as anything else. And what we were able to do is get everyone focused on how to use that benefit. So if Bralon, and again, so great to have him here tonight, as Bralon has said, the problem is, in some respects, we were actually playing 11-man football because one member of the offense wasn't actually part of the offense, and that meant one member of the defense wasn't actually part of the defense. So we were actually playing 11-man football for the last number of years because we weren't utilizing one of the real features of the CFL game, and that's the size of the real estate. So, look, I think we're in an incredibly good place. I think we have an incredibly bright future around our game, and just continuing to focus on making changes that will make it better, faster, and more entertaining. And that's it. That's the final and most important statement of the night.
Well, with that, Commissioner, I think we will finish with this because we started talking about the 2021 Grey Cup. It's coming back in 2023 here at Tim Hortons Field. How excited are you for the Ticats to showcase their vision of what we thought we were going to see in 2021, but without restrictions in 2023, the Grey Cup? What are you expecting to see?
Well, I know this. I think the city of Hamilton, the Ticat fans, this entire community showed Canadians what a special place this is in 21 under trying circumstances. It's almost hard to imagine how great it's going to be when we can invite Canada here. My wife and I and our family home is in Burlington. We use Hamilton a lot because you got some of the best restaurants in Southern Ontario. This city is alive, it's vibrant. I just think when the planning committee, and again, a real hats off to Bob Young, to Scott Mitchell, to Matt, and the entire group here, and now, of course, joined by Jim Lawson as one of the owners, and, of course, Stelco. It's almost unimaginable how great it's going to be when we bring the Grey Cup back here in 2 years. And I know, again, you'll make this community proud, and you'll make the CFL proud to have brought the game back to this great city and this great facility.
All right, and with that, we will leave it. Commissioner Randy Ambrosie, we do have a question here. All right, we got a couple from...
I submitted it, but it was probably too far down. So we've seen the NFL, they recently hired a female rep.
Okay.
The Ticats recently posted they're committed to diversity, started their diversity program, they want to increase that. How does the league feel about hiring female officials, refs, moving into that?
Yeah. Yeah, we are making progress. Look, I think it's like everything else. You have to make a conscious choice to move in that direction. We just announced a diversity and inclusion program that's going to provide for opportunities both on football operations and on business operations for us to welcome in to create a more inclusive environment. So we're working hard on that. BC has got one of our first female coaches on their coaching staff this year. We've got a strong member of our football operations group at the CFL headquarters, is a wonderful lady who's making a huge impact, having a huge impact on our business. Look, we need to do more, but I am very proud to say we've taken a good, positive step in the right direction, and now we just have to keep doing more and more. But I appreciate the question very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the Ticats hiring Tamara Hinich as well.
Yeah.
I think the new director.
I had lunch with Tamara today.
Yeah, the new director of football administration, and the Ticats always taking stride. We did have one more question. We'll ask you here.
Is it safe to say that the fourth down rumor is squashed?
Well, look, I'm not in charge of squashing. What I can tell you is exactly what I'm
against it.
You sure you can?
Okay, I find that it makes the NFL sometimes a little boring. 2 and out makes the guys work harder. They don't want 2 and out. You don't want 2 and out, you bust your butt and get that ball.
Okay.
You go to fourth down and you're going to lose a lot of games.
Yeah. Well, again, you know what? And I don't want to be glib because I'm not my intention at all. Look, I think we've done everything we can do to put that issue behind us. We took a group of people and put them in a room and asked them, again, one simple, very powerful goal: funnest, fastest, most entertaining brand of football in the world. And they came up with some tremendous ideas, and that's where all of our focus is. How do we make that happen?
All right. Okay. All right. We're running up against the clock here with Commissioner Randy Ambrosie. We do still have time here. The bar will be open. Our friends at Center Plate are ready to serve you. The food has been delicious, so thank you to everybody from Center Plate. Thank you for coming out. And one more time, thank you to the 14th Commissioner of the CFL, Mr. Randy Ambrosie. Thank you.
This has been a special presentation of the Ticats Audio Network. If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review wherever you find our content.